Oh, what's the matter? Oh, that's from where we changed it. Okay. All right. Good thing we find this. Oh, but it is live. Okay, I'm going to stop that for a quick second. No. Okay, that's good. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. And I know it may not be morning where you are, but also know, if you know me by now, I don't care. Morning times when we have the most energy, so it's always a good morning when we get started and get rocking and rolling. I'm going to tell you, well, never mind, you heard that in the introduction all about our guest today. We're just going to jump right into it. I do have a series of questions. She gave a very insightful podcast. I'm sorry, TEDx talk that just made me start to think as leaders, we really need to lock in and understand this thing called our heart. Welcome our guest, and I'm going to start off with the very first question for her, and she can just tell the whole thing to us. So tell us, first thing, proper pronunciation of your first and last name.
Ayla, Annac.
Ayla and Annac. So I'm pretty sure our British host, not going to get that right, but we'll find out for sure. Ayla Annac. And she's here, and I want to ask her the very first question. So, what is unique, powerful, that most people don't really know about either you, your TEDx talk, or your organization that you represent and work for? What's unique and powerful that most people just don't know that they need to know?
I believe that it is a heartfelt passion driven for contributing to human health in heart failure area due to the reason of my father's loss when I was very young. He was just 53 years old and he died with a heart failure.
Yes.
And that drove me years finding my scientific partners and form a company, biotech company, who is right now doing a clinical stage drug discovery on heart failure. Uh,
Yeah, really want to jump into that in a bit because I was astonished by something you said through your TEDx, and I want to drill you on that. But your company is really just helping people navigate this area of heart failure.
yes, and it's especially using precision medicine. It has not been implemented in heart failure, but in cancer, it is widely used.
Oh,
So our technology and our platform, which is also diagnostic, enables the utilization of precision medicine so we can actually identify and match drugs to the patient or sub-patient populations in heart failure.
okay. So let me ask you about your journey to the TEDx. I always kind of like to know the backstory about how did you do this? How did, from the time you conceived the notion that you wanted to do it and started putting your talk together to the time you walked up on stage, can you tell us about that journey a little bit? Let us get a feel for you.
Yes, I believe that it was divinely arranged in my view because for me, what I did this TEDx, I wasn't really calling for a TEDx talk. I was curated and recruited by one of the TEDx coaches, Minnie von Melancourt in United Kingdom, and it was totally a coincidence. She liked what we are doing and what is our mission for the company and our technologies and its pioneering nature. So she invited me to come and try to do the TEDx talk in Leamington, UK, and we worked together over 3 months and put together a very simple basis of why the mission is, why we are doing, why we need collaborating forces to make this happen, even though we have the technology. we still need collaboration from the patient advocacy groups, from the pharmaceutical companies, from investors, and from many expertise that come together and make this happen with us. And she found that call is very humanistic. So I think I fly over from the United States, Wisconsin to Leamington, beautiful town,
Yeah.
and a long train drive, but it was a beautiful group of people, a room full of individuals who are interested to know not only myself but other speakers too. And I learned a lot, and I was able to reach out to a group not only US, outside of the US. So the global audience now it has been able to view what we are doing and our call, and
Okay.
able to reach out to us if they are interested in contributing with us.
Okay. Will you kind of explain a little bit about the title you chose, How Genetically Engineered Human Microhearts Can Save Lives? Tell us about that, just to hear that, just what caused that title and what the point of the title was.
Is our technologies and our scientific partners, Dr. Elliot Elson and Dr. Ted Bakasuki, are pioneer in this field. And what we do, we use microhuman heart muscle derived from directly patient samples, like patient blood or urine samples, that we create human heart. And we also automate the entire system and integrate with artificial intelligence to screen compounds.
Mm-hmm.
So we are able to find the drug candidates or targets that match specifically, precisely to the population group that is going to be in the clinical trials, way advanced to the clinical trials. And that is a precision medicine approach, and also patient stratification. And we said genetically engineered because this is perfect for the inherited heart failures and heart failure with preserved ejection fraction condition. There are so many population subgroups, so this is diverse. And as we need more diverse clinical trials, all populations have to be represented, all ages should be represented. And it is getting better and better, but not there yet. Also, drugs have to match the population that they are going to serve
Yes.
and treat.
I found that interesting in your talk. You mentioned, or maybe it's something I read, where you mentioned that a certain type, well, let me really back up just a bit. You said earlier on in this conversation today that medication that you guys are developing is currently not being used in heart patients, but it is being used in cancer. Can you tell us why that is?
I actually, quick clarification,
Yeah.
cancer area has been utilizing precision medicine approach.
Oh,
Heart
the
failure
approach.
is not.
Okay.
So we are enabling the drug firma, our company and other pharmaceutical companies, by using our platform, they can implement the precision medicine, and that screen the drugs on the directly from patient human heart tissues from derived from the patients, so we can actually identify the most efficacious drug for the subpopulation of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. And this technique can be used for genetically defined heart failures, which is extremely difficult to find a treatment efficacious and also safe for that group of population group under the heart failure. And if you know that heart failure is number one reason of deaths in the United States, and half of this population of 6.5 million people who has a heart failure, half of this population have heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. And this is not a problem. The bigger problem is that this population have many segmentation underneath of this. Everyone called this as an umbrella: heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Their heart muscle is kind of working, but not perfectly. But the bigger problem is too stiff, and in certain subpopulation have an enlarged heart and a higher level of fibrosis. So drug needs to find the treat that group. That is where precision medicine come to play.
So Let's go back to the HFpEF, the heart failure preserved ejection fraction. Big words for me. I'm not sure, but I kind of got the feeling that most heart failures are related to that one. And there's another one, right? That reduced ejection.
Yes,
Okay.
other side, other second type of heart failure, and that is more affected the pumping function of the heart, and plenty of innovation and innovative drugs available for that side. So I think we are not concerned that part yet with our focus. Our focus is the where there is an unmet need, which is preserved ejection fraction,
Okay.
mostly aging population, and
Mm-hmm.
now, because of the metabolic disorders and diabetes is on the rise, type 2 especially, this is also a problem for younger populations. And very diverse, both African American and both genders are in this group.
I wonder couple things, but let me ask you the question just hit me in my mind. Why do we have solutions for the uh, reduced ejection type of
Uh,
heart failure and not so much for the preserved? Is that based upon the simple fact that they're not using the precision type of platform for the preserved ejection fraction?
We believe that because it is a bigger problem is that it's an umbrella term. The preserved ejection is an umbrella term, and it is a heterogeneous syndrome with several underlying etiologic and pathophysiologic factors. So there are existence of sub-patient populations and categories. This creates a biggest hurdle, and that doesn't exist in the reduced ejection fraction group. And so they are trying to do a one size fits all drug development approach for
Mm,
mostly and in
okay.
heart failure. And there's a large population comes to the clinical trials for the clinical trials to go over. Like one clinical trial recruited more than 8,000 patients for the phase 3, and they couldn't meet perfectly. There was a disappointment on the endpoints. And the reason is this kind of trials, if there are segments, subcategories of the patients that needs different drugs for the same condition, then precision medicine, just like the cancer area, heart
Mm,
failure requires a precision medicine approach, and this is not as expensive as people is thinking. Now with the technologies, which is a platform like ours with a diagnostic capabilities and also the ability to create human heart tissue directly from patient population that we are seeking a drug development for is available. And so this is going to open the new avenue and options for innovative options for the preserved ejection fraction now.
now, do they present different? In other words, like if I'm having symptoms and I walk in the doctor is going to be able to say, "Yeah, this is the overarching, like I said, it's kind of the umbrella term, preserve ejection," or do I present differently, reduced ejection, or do we have to do a lot of blood workup and spend weeks getting the difference?
Experienced doctors who works with the especially right now more so in the older patient group, geriatric patients, and some of the metabolic problems like type 2 diabetes patients, even the younger ones.
Hmm. Hmm.
Doctors knows they have to do a severe set of testing to understand and diagnosis and to give the diagnosis to this patient group. But the ones who knows the condition are expert, and there are available tests and blood conditions, and then beyond the blood sometimes even they take the biopsies, not from the heart exactly, but there's a if it is inherited, genetically defined, they might do even a biopsy in the condition that called amniosis, and this could be
Hmm.
available to those experts in the offices and the clinical places. So it is not very clear. You cannot, if you are not expert and if you're not a doctor, you might feel an heart failure. You may think you have a heart failure, but as I said, now is number one killer in the United States uh,
You
for
know,
everybody.
I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned this in your talk. I want to know why is the number of heart failure is increasing. And I started thinking about it. I said, I think it's just a change of how we're defining heart failures. But I don't know if you'd agree with that or not. Why is it increasing so much?
First, I believe there are not many highly innovative drugs for each subsection, subcategory of heart failure. And also, I believe the aging and life conditions, there are many other. It's a complex condition. It is not a very straightforward disease. It goes over the years, and based on age, immune system, genetic condition, that might go into a very different places. And secondly, also there are many millions of people with cancer. They receive treatments. Sometimes those treatments are very heavy on the heart and can toxicate the heart
Oh,
unintentionally, and that also contribute to increasing number of failures of heart. And this is human heart is the most precious organ
yeah.
that we have. We procreate, we breathe, we actually survive, and heart has a very strong function. And
Mm,
uh, we have
very
to
good
make
point.
sure that we keep it healthy, and drugs that we take have to be precise for the needs of that heart as well.
Very good point. And something though, you just said it, and it was on my mind as well. You said the drugs need to work, but can you talk about the success and failures of medication when it comes to these different forms of heart attacks or just plain basic heart attacks? There's some successes and some failures there. Can you share those with us a little bit?
I believe there are many successes because of the advanced technologies and also the expertise that has been really good. And we have really capable doctors, cardiologists, and pharmaceutical companies.
Okay.
But also, we have some drugs that may create, unintentional causes because they are not efficacious. The efficacy is not there. That means
Mm,
the true healing is not happening. Maybe symptoms are covered, but the true healing has not been happening to the patients, or
okay.
maybe there might be some type of a cardiotoxicity might be happening eventually over long term of usage.
Okay. Okay. So long term of usage and they're not quite effective. I mean, it's kind of hate to say it, it's kind of like the flu shot, 66% efficacy rate. I mean, really? Okay. So these are not much better or better right now.
Well, I think efficacy, if you're healed and you are able to exercise right now, the best way, if you can do your life the way it, you are happy with, you are proud of, and you can see your loved ones, you can do a simple tasks that you're supposed to do daily, and be with your loved ones. That is what the drugs are achieving. They are not really healing completely the heart failure condition. And so
Okay.
I think we have to be more innovative for efficacy, and innovation is possible.
Okay. Okay. And I like that. That's a good play on your name. Um, Tell us, just give us the basics of heart failure, just in case there's somebody, who hasn't had it in their family. And I think if we had it in our family or we've had it ourselves, we've been a little bit more aware. But can you share with us just heart failure basics, just maybe the 101 version of it?
Well, I think our focus is mostly on the heart failure with the preserved ejection fraction. But
Hmm.
when either the pumping function, which is the heart failure with reduced ejection, pumping function is not working, or the other way around, the muscle may be all right, but muscle gets very stiff or heart get enlarged because pumping so hard, working so hard, and stiff cannot normally pump anymore. And also the one of the critical functions in this case, uh, the fibrosis. There is
Ah,
a fibrosis
yeah,
like scar on the heart, and
right.
in some, not everybody gets all of this, but specific patient population, this fibrosis is much more dominant, and
Mm,
this leads to hypercontractile heart and diastolic dysfunction. And these are critical dysfunctions, and this needs to be treated because
yes.
that and needs to be improved. The
Mm,
diastolic dysfunction has to be improved for the survival rate of the patient and quality of life. And these are the key two things that patient expects: survive and have a better quality of life with the loved ones if they are surviving, not to be in the hospital constantly and very expensive both for them and for the governments and
Yes.
hospitals
Yep.
to treat these patients.
Yeah, it's something else. And thank you very much for kind of reviewing that again for us. You came upon it at the start, came up upon it in your TEDx, but thank you very much for reviewing that for us. Also kind of ask you to review this for us as well. Your technology that you're using today. Tell
Uh,
us a little bit about that.
Sure. We are focusing to find a current drug program for heart failure preserved ejection fraction, but we used micro human heart muscle derived from the patient, exactly from the population we are going after for treating, and to samples to screen the compounds to find our heart failure with preserved ejection fraction drug candidates. So we are actually matching the drugs and the patients that we are going to go after and treat. And this can be done much advanced stage than the clinical trial start. That's at the preclinical you can identify, and you can identify and then look at the validation of the target. This platform is highly effective and a drug discovery platform or target validation platform, and can apply to identify drugs to treat different type of heart failure, especially inherited genetically oriented heart failure, and identify biomarkers. So very, very useful. And we do that very cost effectively. And it's also critical because heart failure drugs and clinical trials are or has been very, very expensive to sponsor. And that is why to do this effectively and cost-effective technologies and bringing the safe and efficacious drug in precision medicine is critical. And that's what we are offering to pharmaceutical industry,
Good.
potential partners, and the patients in the future.
That's great. Now, my question is kind of twofold. So I have a really good feeling, and you've shared a really good feeling about how you're helping people right now. Okay, and I'd like to know how you're making a difference, how you're helping people right now, but more importantly, how people can help you make that difference. How the leaders listening right now can say, okay, here's what I can do to help make that difference. So we get great heart failure treatment in all areas, not just the easy ones to discover, but the hard ones. How can people listening right now help you, and how are you helping?
The one biggest principle, I am very grateful that we have been here in this stage, that we develop a technology and identify a drug for a precisely for that population that's the biggest unmet need and innovation required, heart failure preserved ejection. So we have a drug program. It is not enough though, because my passion from my father, what happened to me, I wanted to really, I take this as a mission. My team is brilliant scientific people trying to make that happen. But you cannot do it without funding, sufficient funding. You know, we have,
Yeah.
of course, funding, but
Hmm.
that's not sufficient to take it to the next stage. You cannot do that with awareness of the patients. And they are also, going and asking for better, safer, and effective drugs. And they are being educated about their condition. They are talking and communicating with their doctors, and also clinical clinicians, the cardiologists, who will actually need to come into this program and work through the drug development with us. And this call is for a collaboration from the funding partners, pharmaceutical partners. They can come and work with us early stage risk sharing, and the cardiologists, they can come and offer this drug to their, the patients through the clinical trials, and we can have them participate into this development so that we can bring them to the patients much faster and much more successfully together. So my call is a call for collaboration and making this happen, although we are very confident about the platform technology, which was contributed through the NIH funding and a variety of validations through the pharmaceutical companies and contracts from the FDA, NCATS, and many other organizations and partners. So we did our part, but we still need to go further to make the drug available for the patients who needs this already and suffering from this condition.
Tell us, just for way review, how long has your company been around?
The first original development of the platform started with the tissue culture growth, which is the heart
Mhm.
tissues, is 2001. And then it's
Okay.
integrated to the platform, automation of the instrumentation. So we are a pioneer, mostly in the scientific sections, Dr. Wakastuki and Dr.
Mm.
Elliot Elson, in
Yeah.
this technology of genetically defined heart failure 3D tissue engineering technologies and platforms.
Okay. 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 Um, go back to the TED Talk just for a minute. How did this TED Talk? I know you said they asked you, you're curated into it, which is rare. I mean,
Yes,
most people say
and I'm
that,
very grateful for that.
yeah, and it's tough for a lot of people to get in it. But you had a message that would really need to be honed down to fit in the time period they gave you.
Yes,
How'd
and
you do that?
well, it is a 15 minutes talk for that purposes, and though it has to be a story, it's not a technical talk. And they thought that I could do that better than if I was the scientific partner who is doing the talk, which they could do a better job than I do in the all the details of the brilliant technology that they have developed and
Hmm.
pioneered. But this was a talk to the heart of the patient. And this was a talk to the vision, sharing the vision, because we still need to bring the funding and the partners to go into the drug development, which is very expensive, as everybody knows, and it require expertise and a multitude of people to come together and focus and plan details and execute.
Sure.
And so the TED Talk for 15 minutes bring the journey of the reason why my heart was inspired to dedicate my life to this mission, because I had to dedicate my career to this entrepreneurship and use my resources and abilities to make this science commercialization happen and to develop the technology and prototype and validate all the things. It takes a long years, and it is required determination and leadership, and not to giving up when you don't have funding, well, not to giving up when you have tough challenges which we had faced, or
Yeah.
competition yet coming and maybe infringing or trying to go around. Most important part, everything is welcome, but what is the most critical, how to get the final product to the patients through the collaborations, and how to lead the way and
Hmm.
serve the
Okay.
populations. So
Okay.
15 minutes, it has to be hero's journey. And
Yes.
I think that talk was very well coached by Minnie, was very helpful for me, but
Hmm.
also Craig helped me with the graphics, the parts of the presentation, and they limit me just to talk about why I'm doing this, and also what is the my request or call seeking
Okay.
out of this, and why my heart is in it. That was much more easier for
Yeah,
me
that's
to do
true.
than
Which,
a scientific talk.
your heart's in it, your company. But what I'm curious about, if you can just maybe paraphrase it, what is the mission and the vision? What is that for you?
Our mission is we are a preclinical stage biotech company. We like to develop therapeutics for rare type of heart failure, our first program for preserved ejection fraction, but we want to be even greater help for the pharmaceutical partners who comes into that. We would like to contribute many other drugs for the genetically defined heart failure area through utilization of our platform and through the partnerships. So there are many other drugs to come out, but they can only come out if the partners comes and utilize the platform with us, and we
Mhm.
develop drugs with them, and including rare diseases. These are tough diseases. The reason I said the mission is we would love to implement precision medicine approach in heart failure, and we have a platform to do so. And we are validating with the first program for the preserved ejection fraction. These are big visions, and big visions calls collaboration and other human expertise and funding. So I may be the voice, and I may be the voice that to use to exemplate my voice through your channel
Yeah.
and TEDx. But I am very grateful that I was invited to TED Talks. And also, I'm very grateful that I'm invited to your show, which is brilliant and enables people like ours to be able to voice out our missions and bring others to that.
Well, what it does is that it allows me to leverage experts that have a passion for it. And I think that allows the leadership out there to learn. We discovered, as you and I were talking about this, that it really doesn't matter what the subject. When someone has your knowledge level, leaders are going to learn from that. When they have your passion for what you're doing, they're going to learn from that. I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to ask you somewhat a difficult question that you weren't planning on. I would like for you to tell me what questions I should have asked you that I did not ask you. What question should I have asked you that I did not ask you?
Maybe question was, if you are successful in your mission, right? Have you been, succeeded to get wealthy about this mission? Is it, abundant for you? And this question has never been asked as an entrepreneur, because I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And
Then
I,
please answer the question.
yeah,
Please answer that question.
I could
Mhm.
answer that. We define the success is the ability to bring the platform to make and educate, maybe in some cases, the industry. This is NIH funded, and we have an obligation to thought leadership because the funding comes from government. But of course, we also have an obligation for commercialization. But commercialization of great visions comes with the funding.
Yes.
Funding is a challenging piece for everyone. With networks are easy, but sometimes for entrepreneurs like us, we have to do a much more higher effort and legwork and determination and perseverance. I think I am very successful on that one, but
Mm.
I have to bring more funding to complete the drug development aspect of this platform and bring the patients like my father, who died 33 years ago. There is still no cure and there is still no drug available for his condition. So I would love to be able to heal or help other fathers, other men and women who is suffering from this condition and genetically defined heart failures. And that is my success and that is my power. But maybe not yet that I raise all the funding and all the expertise that I will require to finalize this drug program and
Yeah.
reach the patients.
Yep. And it will go on from there. Once you get the money you think you need, it's time for the next round. So it will go on from there. Um, how do people get involved? How do they get a hold of you?
They can actually find me from www.invivosciences.com. And there is my email, or AANNAC at invivosciences.com is my email. It's
Okay.
easy to find. They can Google my name, Ayla Annac, and they will be reaching directly to me. My phone number is also listed.
Okay.
And any emails that comes to me, I always respond and I take the phone.
And that information will be in the show notes for those of you who didn't get it written down. We'll cover all that. I want to say thank you very much for sharing this because we need to learn about the advances and the challenges of heart failure. Like if we really thought about it, there's just no way you ever would have thought that the preserved ejection fraction condition is not being solved yet because
Not
you haven't taught it to them yet. Okay, but that's important because that's appears to be a larger percentage of these heart failures than the rejection one.
and expensive, very expensive for the patient, very suffering for the patient,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody wants to be living rest of their life in hospitals.
And I'll conclude with this because no one wants to be living the rest of their life. 3 weeks was too much for me. I had 3 weeks about a year ago, and that was too much for me. So the rest of your life, I've lost family members who've had heart failure and things like that and spent forever. But that's not the point. The point simply is this. We have to figure out how to take better care of ourselves and each other, and you went a long ways to get us there. And I greatly appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
I appreciate for this opportunity. I appreciate your leadership. Not everybody cares as much as you do for what is important for the population's humanity or heart failure. I have a mission doing this, but you enable me to my voice to be heard. So thank you for being in your program, and I wish you very best luck for a much more successful future leadership talks with the others. Thank you.
We will. Thank you. Stay there. Don't hang up.